All right. Well, without further ado, hello and welcome to the online launch of our latest issue of FMR, which is on the topic of dangerous journeys, saving lives and responding to missing migrants and refugees. We're so glad that you could join us. Please continue to introduce yourselves to one another as we go. And for those of you who have just joined us, if you want to get interpretation, you can do so by looking at the bottom of your screen, and you should find a globe. It's actually in the More button at the bottom. You'll find interpretation, and then you can choose your channel and you can listen in French, in Spanish, in Arabic. So we will try to speak not too fast so that the interpreters can have a best chance of conveying what we're saying. And we're really grateful to the interpreters for their service to us today. We're going to be hearing from a wonderful panel of authors in a few minutes, but first, a few thank yous. Every issue of FMR is a team effort, from donors to reviewers and experts, translators and designers, alongside the FMR team. We're so grateful to the donors for the donors on this issue. And so I'm just going to name them at this point. We've got the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark, the Swiss Federal Department of Foreign Affairs, ICRC, IFRC, IOM, and UNHCR. And without their financial support, this issue simply wouldn't have been possible. Jana Röthlisberger from the one of our donors is going to be speaking to us now. She works as a program officer within the Peace and Human Rights Division of the Swiss Federal Department of Foreign Affairs. And amongst a whole range of responsibilities that she has there, she leads on Switzerland's diplomatic initiative on missing migrants and refugees. So thank you so much for being willing to offer a few words as we start our launch event today. Over to you, Jana.
Thank you so much, Alice, and sorry for all the tongue this introduction. So, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it is a really great honor to deliver these opening remarks on behalf of Switzerland in support of the 75th edition of the first Migration Review on Dangerous Journeys, Saving Lives and Responding to Missing Migrants and Refugees. Switzerland's Peace and Human Rights Division commends the editors for dedicating this edition to such an important and pressing issue, which, in our view, represents both a humanitarian challenge and a human rights crisis. We would also like to thank the authors for their important contributions and their outstanding work reflected in this edition. According to IOM's Missing Migrants project that Switzerland supports, more than 75,000 people worldwide are known to have lost their lives or gone missing on their migration journeys since 2014. A number that continues to grow and yet likely underrepresents the true scale of its nature. Behind this number are human beings, women, men, boys, and girls, each with names, dreams, and loved ones left behind. Switzerland therefore remains deeply committed to preventing the loss of life along migratory routes and upholding the rights of families searching for answers. We aim to strengthen the global response through enhanced cooperation with and among states, humanitarian actors, forensic services, civil society organizations, and families of the missing. In this regard, it was a great pleasure to co-author an article in this edition on strengthening state collaboration to prevent and resolve cases of missing migrants, together with my brilliant co-authors Ndumbeh Saho from the Gambia and Florian von König from the ICRC. The article sheds light on the responsibilities of states as duty bearers and reflects the conviction that the prevention and resolution of cases of missing migrants require cross-border and trans-regional engagement with the meaningful involvement of countries of origin, transit, and destination. In this article also presents the recently launched network of national focal points for missing migrants that Switzerland launched together with the Gambia and the ICRC with support from the Rabat Process Secretariat last year. Today, the network counts more than 25 or around 25 participating members north and south of the Mediterranean Sea, and it continues to grow. You will hear more about the role and responsibilities of national focal points from Ndumbeh Saho later. I would like to not steal more of your valuable time and conclude by reiterating that amidst the growing number of people being forced to leave their homes and going missing on migratory routes, Switzerland welcomes this publication as a timely contribution to global efforts backed by humanitarian principles and human rights. So without further ado, I wish us all an engaging discussion today and to see how we can further join forces to prevent and respond to the cases of missing migrants and refugees, and to meet the needs of families left behind. Thank you very much, and I can't wait for this engaging panel.
Thank you so much, Jana, and thank you for being a great partner to us along the way. Your support has meant a lot. So onward to a few more thank yous to the core group of advisors and reviewers. Thank you for bringing your expertise and your experience, your passion and your time to the project. And thank you to our authors, 55 in all. Thank you for investing time in sharing your insights with others who are working to see change in this important area, for enriching the debate and for informing policy and practice. If we're going to see change, that is a great gift in pursuit of those goals. So I'm going to give you a brief look at the issue just to orientate you. So I'm just going to share my screen here. As you can see, this is our website. We have a multilingual website. You can move it into French, Spanish, or Arabic here on the side. I'm going to stick with the English as that's the language that this webinar is happening in. You'll here see the latest issue on the homepage. You can download it, take it away. You can use the flipbook, which is a nice way of viewing it, like this. And then you can see the great contents that's here. So we've got 25 articles in all. So many interesting articles. I love every issue of FMR, and I usually love the one I'm working on the most. But I have to say that the quality of articles, this was the highest number of proposals that we had ever received, and the quality was really high. It was very hard to choose. And I think the breadth of types of experience and regional focuses and professional backgrounds that are represented here it makes it such a rich set of articles. So I really commend them all to you. Read the ones that are of interest and read some others that may be outside of your area. You can also view all of the articles separately here. And hopefully this also makes it easier for you to share them with colleagues and others who you think might be interested. So that's how you can find it. You can also view all of our older issues. And in this Explore Content section, you can do a full search of previous issues of FMR. So we'd love you to be able to look at those as well. Right, I shall now, without further ado, turn to the author panel, which I'm sure will be the most compelling part of this launch event. So I'd like to introduce you to our moderator. Jana, your video is still on. I'm wondering if, oh yes, excellent. So Sanjula Weerasinghe, who is the Global Coordinator for Migration and Displacement at the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, which is IFRC. And Sanjula has been such a driving force behind this issue. She really showed so much passion as we talked about the issue that it really compelled me to want to choose this topic. And she's been a really great support throughout. So thank you, Sanjula, for that. And thank you today for agreeing to moderate. our wonderful panel of authors. And I'll pass over to you to introduce everyone and just give us a bit of housekeeping about how it's going to work. All right. Thanks very much, Sanjula.
Thank you, Alice. And hello, colleagues. Thank you very much for joining this launch event. I've been watching the numbers go up, and I can see 167 participants today. And I'm wondering whether this is also the highest number of participants we've had for a launch event, Alice, just like the number of proposals. I'm sure that you're here because you've had a chance to read some of those articles or you've contributed to this issue, and that you've realised that this issue on dangerous journeys is both sobering and confronting. And that's because it deals with the life and death of migrants and refugees. It deals with their disappearance. It deals with the anguish of families who are waiting for answers. And it deals with the serious risks and harms along migration routes and of unmet humanitarian needs. But these are all the reasons why this issue of FMR is also powerful and necessary, because it doesn't just highlight the challenges, it also illuminates the extensive work that's being done by practitioners, by policymakers, by advocates, and by researchers across the globe, of the work that is being done, of the tireless efforts, and how much more there is to do, how much more we must do if we truly want to reduce the deaths and disappearances of migrants and refugees along migration and displacement routes, and address the consequences for their families, for their communities, and for all of our societies. So I feel quite privileged and honoured to be able to moderate this panel and to do so on behalf of a wonderful set of colleagues and collaborators. Of course, the team at FMR and the donors that Alice has already thanked. Also, to colleagues at ICRC, IOM, and UNHCR, specifically Florian von Koenig, Mariella Guajardo, and Samuel Bertruche. Together over the past 2 years, we've supported the development of a set of UN Secretary General's recommendations on preventing loss of life in transit and strengthening cooperation on missing migrants. The UN Secretary General presented these to member states in December last year. And those recommendations were informed by the operational experience and expertise of member states, of our organisations, and many other stakeholders, many of whom I'm sure are here on this call today. And what these recommendations do is reinforce also the importance of multilateral frameworks, including the complementarity between the Global Compact on Migration and the Global Compact for Refugees. And I'm mentioning all of this now because it was this interagency collaboration that planted the seeds for this FMR issue. And the work of all the colleagues that have been mentioned today have made it a reality, which means that now, at this present moment in time, we have at least 25 articles in one collection that give us a baseline and a bit of a foundation of what we're doing at this present moment in time. And perhaps in 3 to 5 years, we can reassess and look back and see what we've been able to change. So with that, and I know you're here to listen to the authors, I'm really pleased to introduce 4 of our 55 authors who are here, who will provide some reflections on their articles and highlight some of the wider issues that are at play. We have with us today Malvika Verma, who is a humanitarian practitioner working with Médecins Sans Frontières in the Central Sahel. She focuses primarily on themes of forced displacement, migration, civilian protection, and humanitarian access in complex emergencies, armed conflict and violence, and other settings. We also I think, have or will have soon Ndumbeh Saho, who is the Director of Diaspora and Migration at the Gambia Ministry of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation, and Gambians Abroad. Her career began at the Gambia's Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, where she led the Contingent Liability Risk Management section. We have Ngang through Delvis, who is from the English-speaking minority regions of Cameroon, currently completing a Master of Science in Refugees and Forced Migration Studies at the University of Oxford. He brings over a decade of experience working with IDPs, asylum seekers, and refugees across Cameroon, the Central African Republic, and the United Kingdom. And we also have Mamiya, who is the Director of Research for the Foundation for Humanitarian Action at Sea. Previously, Ralph worked for the Centre for Excellence in Disaster Management and Humanitarian Assistance and served as team leader of the Protection of Civilians team at the United Nations Department of Peace Operations. Ralph, if you also want to turn on your camera, I will now call on, great. So here are our authors so far, and I'm sure Ndumbeh will also join soon. I know she was having some trouble with her connection. So what I will do, if you don't mind, is start with you, Malvika, because I know that you highlight specifically the needs that migrants who are transiting through the Sahel region have. And if you could take about 2 to 3 minutes to reflect on your article, which is focused on search and rescue in the desert, taking a proactive approach in Niger. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sanjula, for the introduction, and to the FMR team for putting together this issue. I will jump right into it in the interest of time and present the article elaborating on the search and rescue efforts undertaken by Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF, and others in the Agadez region of Niger. I will start by giving a bit of a geographical and contextual background. So historically, until date, Niger has been a major departure, transit, and destination point in Western Central Africa, and the region of Agadez bordering Algeria and Libya sits at the intersection of key migratory routes in the region. As a result, Agadez receives migrants in different phases of migration, including some in transit to and from other West African countries, as well as towards Europe via the North Africa and the Mediterranean Sea. Among those that arrive in Agadez are also migrants that have been forcibly expelled from Algeria and Libya. So the article touches upon this, and this is a key feature in the region, in the context. The article in question sheds light on how both expelled and in-transit migrants in Agadez that are at the center of MSF's programming can often find themselves stranded on dangerous routes. This may be due to a variety of reasons. They can be lost, their vehicles may break down en route, they were forcibly expelled, etc. And they may be in the middle of the desert without access to water or essential services. As such, they are in extremely precarious conditions in a climate that is unforgiving, to say the least, and at risk of exposure to violence, exploitation, which makes rapid and well-coordinated search and rescue efforts crucial to preventing loss of life in the desert. In this vein, the article touches upon how the entire cycle of search and rescue, from the reception of distress alerts to the mobilization of a response, is intricately linked to the legal policy environment and certain actions, or we can say lack thereof, of certain security and law enforcement entities, communities, NGOs, and other stakeholders. To illustrate this, a comparison is drawn between MSF's operational experiences in migration contexts in Niger and in Europe, such as Italy, where let's say the legal policy framework is restrictive, to say the least. And based on these contrasting experiences, the article presents 3 recommendations, which I will let you read, as I believe my time is up.
Thanks, Malvika. It's tight, I know, but maybe I can prompt you a bit. I know that, I mean, I've read your article and I hope many others have as well. I know your article highlights some of the ways in which stronger coordination and rapid coordination can be facilitated. If you can give us some practical ideas of what needs to be done to do that, that would be great. And just highlight a few ideas for what can create an enabling environment for doing that. That would be great.
Right. Thank you for the question. I dare say there are several methods to facilitate such efforts, and perhaps I can touch upon two key points based on experiences in Agadez. I'd say, first and foremost, the most basic, but perhaps the most important aspect is quick and transparent information sharing among NGOs, local communities, and state actors on the ground on migrants in distress, which automatically allows launching of rescue operations, all the aspects in the wheel of rescue operations. And in the case of Niger, for instance, one of the ways this is facilitated is via helplines. And to note particularly that this is an activity which is not criminalized or even obstructed by the state, as opposed to, say, in certain European contexts where any form of assistance is either obstructed or outright penalized. And in this vein, MSF operates a 24/7 toll-free helpline, which can be used by the authorities, law enforcement bodies, local communities, or even migrants themselves to inform MSF and other actors about a situation of distress, thereby raising the alert to launch a rescue operation. And secondly, perhaps unobstructed community-led rescues, that is to say, the mere act of letting and not penalizing efforts of village leaders, drivers, even migrants themselves to organize and mobilize the necessary resources, such as a vehicle, fuel, to conduct a rescue of their fellow community members, that goes a long way. Yes.
Fantastic, really practical, really helpful. Coordination between NGOs, local actors, and states all together as key interlocutors. An approach through helplines, non-criminalization as an enabling environment, and non-obstruction and support through facilitation. Super helpful. Thank you very much. And I can see that there are some questions coming in as well. I forgot to mention this before I introduced Malvika, but if you could please include your questions in the chat. We should have time, at least about 10 minutes, to take a few questions before our panel finishes today as well. So please do include them. Keeping with migrants, perhaps from Africa, but moving to a completely different region now. Ngang, I'd like to maybe ask you to take a few minutes, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, just to provide a bit of an overview of your article, which deals with Cameroonian women navigating the dangerous journey through the Americas. Over to you. You're on mute, Fru. If you could just is it working for you? I can see that maybe I can see it if you've got it's perhaps on the left-hand corner of your screen if you can find it, but perhaps as you're looking for it, I'm also happy. Great.
Oh, sorry.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sanjula. Thank you for. I'm really sorry for the technical hiccup. Like I was saying, thank you very much for the opportunity to be a part of this event, and equally, I'm thanking the Forced Migration Review team and funders for giving me the opportunity to present my work. I think it's an immense honor for me to talk about women who are from a region in the world which has been considered by several observers as one of the top 10 most neglected displacement crises in the world. So my research basically, I wanted to actually explore the experiences of Cameroonian women navigating an emerging and highly perilous migration routes from Cameroon to Latin America and then to the USA. My interest was to highlight the kind of risk that these women face as they undergo this journey. I was equally interested in understanding the kind of support or the lack of support that they receive from local communities as they journey along, and most importantly, what kind of gender sensitive safety strategies did they actually develop as the to withstand that journey rather. So for my research, I talked principally to women who had made the journeys themselves, to family members who unfortunately had lost someone along the journey, and to smugglers or informal travel agents who had facilitated the journey for most of those women. I'm my findings was that Cameroonian women using this route are subjected to a number of interconnected risk that principally stems from the physical environment itself, from criminal activities, from dangerous transportations, and from state policies that actually criminalizes mobility. For most of the journey, for most of the migrants, the journey was principally done on foot, and for most of them, this lasted like for months, like over 2 months. So the journey itself inflicted huge physical and mental pain on the migrants, and whether they were trekking or using smuggler provided transportation, what was what was what happened was that they systematically met with either narco traffickers or bandits or other smugglers, and these people either robbed them or physically or sexually abuse them. So those are some of the risks that they encountered along the way. This violence was not only restricted to narco traffickers and bandits along the way. They equally their engagement with border patrol officers in some country was equally violent, particularly in the south of Mexico. But despite these challenges, the women actually demonstrated remarkable resilience, leveraging on mutual aid and community support to survive. The community, for example,
on that, Fru, maybe if I can ask as a quick follow-up to you, it would be great to hear about some of those self-protection strategies that the women may have adopted, because I know you're probably getting to that as well, and we have about a minute to go. So if you could tell us just in about a minute or so what some of those self-protection strategies were that women adopted for themselves, and what we can do as a community, as local actors, as governments, as humanitarians, to support those self-protection strategies, that would be great. Maybe in about a minute or so.
Oh, thank you very much. I think one of the most important protection strategies that the women developed was just mutual support. The women, like when I was talking to the women, they said they were all sisters to each other, and they could actually take turn actually um, um, providing maybe to be at the lookout for other women, or to actually provide care to those who were traveling with children. In case where one of the women got sick, I think one of them actually stood up to actually fill that role. And along the way, there were several women who also had skills that, like one of the women was a nurse when before she left Cameroon. So I think she was providing most of those support to other women, and that in a way that form of mutual support created some safety strategy that women could leverage as they move along the journey.
Great, thank you so much, for really appreciate it. Okay, so we've heard a little bit about needs and risks in Africa and needs and risks in the Americas. And maybe moving now to the Mediterranean, to you, Ralph, a little bit to the Mediterranean, but actually more broadly around the world, to shipping lanes and the work of private actors. It would be really great to get an overview of your article in 2 to 3 minutes and really to better understand the untapped potential there with private actors, and particularly the shipping sector, the commercial shipping and maritime sector. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Sanjula. Thanks to everyone here. I know time is short, so I will try to be brief. Yes, maritime migration is what our paper focused on. It was written with my co-author, Caroline Abusada, who is the executive director of the Foundation for Humanitarian Action at Sea, where I work and where we work on these issues. And drawing on what Ngang and Malvika described, many of the people who make those perilous journeys across parts of Latin America, parts of Africa, end up on coastlines. They try to make a maritime journey onwards. A rough estimate, 300,000 people, maritime migrants and refugees, made that journey in 2024. Many of them did not make it to the other side. Estimating deaths are difficult, but it could be as high as 15,000. The journey can be very perilous across open ocean, often in rafts or canoes, pirogue, that are not built for open ocean travel, that engines may break down, little food and little water. But these oceans are not necessarily empty. There are many other vessels. Many of the the key maritime routes in the world, from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean to the Straits of Malacca, are also key shipping lanes. And just to give an example, in 2023, 32,000 vessels, commercial ships, passed through the Malta Channel. That's just between Malta and Italy, very close to major maritime migration routes from Libya. During that year, there were 216 distress calls received by commercial ships from rescue centers. So that's an average of 18 times per month. And since we know maritime migration focuses between July and September, if you were a ship entering that channel, there would be a distress call once per day. So this is, something that ships do encounter. It is a known challenge. It is not as common as some other things, but it is a real issue. Between 2022 and 2024 in the Mediterranean, 1,001 people were saved in 22 separate instances of rescue or assistance. So commercial actors are potentially really important in this arena. The thrust of our paper is to raise them and raise that importance as something that we don't often think of when looking at humanitarian issues, but should be kept in mind and should be explored.
Thanks, Ralph. Great overview and really useful to understand a set of actors that we don't, as humanitarians, normally engage with. What kind of support do they actually need to carry out rescues, whether it's logistical, whether it's legal? What support do they need after people are rescued? And is there lessons from past practice where we can get good insights on where this has been done well?
So I think, thinking about before and after rescue is important, because one of the things we're trying to develop and better understand are the incentives around becoming involved in rescue. I think that the shipping industry is an important actor. They are by no means uniform. Not all of them are humanitarians themselves. They don't always do the right thing. I think, you know, we do have instances where captains have made tough decisions and have rescued people. That doesn't always happen. And so one of the things we're trying to do is look at those incentives. Things like some of them are operational and logistical. These vessels are often quite large, decks that are 10 meters high off the water or more, often relatively small crews for the size of the ship. The ship may be carrying hazardous chemicals, maybe carrying flammable materials. So all of those kinds of things are important to understand. And obviously they are commercial entities. They're not there to save people. They don't make money from it. So understanding all of those incentives that go into that decision, whether or not to rescue, when to report a vessel in distress, are key questions. So part of that is legal, part of that is policy, part of that is operational. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And I'm sure that people will have questions for each of you. So colleagues, feel free to put your questions in the chat. I'm going to now go to Ndumbeh, who is our last speaker, but I have purposefully left her last because she's going to talk a little bit about the important role of state actors. And Ndumbeh, I'm going to hand over to you to speak on your important paper, which Jana has also mentioned at the beginning. If you can take 2 to 3 minutes to highlight the facilitating role and the leadership that states can play on this critical issue, that would be great. Ndumbeh, you're on mute still.
Thank you so much, Sanjula, for that introduction. I think, as Jana has mentioned, migratory route connecting Africa to Europe remains among the world deadliest, with over 31,000 deaths recorded in the Mediterranean and 16 across Africa in the past decade. In fact, more people die across the Sahara than the Mediterranean, and the year 2023 was the deadliest. This is a call for concern, and the lack of comprehensive legal framework on missing migrants have complicated response. But international human rights instruments such as the Convention on Forced Disappearance do impose obligations to fight, investigate, and provide remedies. State, therefore, must play a central role in addressing the crisis, not only because they hold the essential information, but also because they have the capacity to coordinate, investigate, and support affected families. Whenever we say missing migrants, usually is across the border, meaning bilateral engagement. State actors play a crucial role in making sure that all the actors are connected. The Gambia being a case study in point, with a large youth population and high employment, many risk their life across this dangerous route to Europe. And this has prompted us to act promptly by responding to find answers. We joined the Global Alliance for Missing Migrants and also strengthen national and international frameworks to make sure that we leverage on that to address the case at hand. So the Rabat process served us very well because it has been instrumental in promoting coordinated response under its framework, because as you are aware, there are 57 countries on the Rabat process with other stakeholders. So we leverage on that platform to help improve bilateral coordination between member states to support missing migrants. Currently, the Gambia co-chair with Switzerland a thematic meeting on missing migrants in 2023, and we are expected to have another meeting in Banjul in July. And the purpose of this is to play a lead role in launching the network of national focal persons for missing migrants. And this is all geared towards making sure that all the actors communicate, all the actors understand the stake at hand, and all the actors also strengthen bilateral relations in this area. So the focal persons network is actually very instrumental for all actors to to communicate, to share ideas, and to strengthen bilateral relations in support to missing migrants. Together with Switzerland, the ICRC, the network now have over 20 members, enable countries to share information on those platforms and best practice. We also support families of missing migrants and loved ones at country level. Currently, the Gambia don't have a very strengthened framework, but what we do is we rely on the activists as well as the diaspora community and the Gambian mission support to make sure that we have answers for families. And the biggest challenge for now is trying to bridge the gap between the missing persons and the unidentified body. This is a great concern for us. A lot of bodies are out there unidentified. A lot of migrants are in prisons and detention centers without any opportunity to communicate or have access to their families. And a lot of families also are coming, asking for loved ones, asking for answers. So now the biggest challenge now is to leverage on this network to make sure that we connect those two dots, to make sure that the missing and also the unidentified connects at one point. Yeah. So thank you so much. Yeah.
No, fantastic and really, really helpful. Just a quick follow-up question on this network of national focal points. And I'm realizing that there are colleagues from many other regions here, and the rub-up process is going to launch this network. And I imagine that other regions would want to understand some lessons from your region because you're leading on this. And it would be good to understand what you think some of the key roles and responsibilities of each of these national focal points are, should be, and perhaps how other regions can emulate the example in your region. I don't know if you can do that in about a minute or so, but it would be great if you could. Thanks.
Okay, good. Thank you. Should I go ahead? Yes, I think the importance of this network is it provides a platform to share ideas and exchange best practice. Because missing migrants in some part of the world is a very new kind of phenomenon. We have a lot of forced disappearance that is happening, and usually you use the prosecution, the political forced disappearance cases that we used to have in the Gambia. But currently what we are seeing is the humanitarian part, which is the smuggling of migrants, the trafficking of migrants, and people moving without documentation. So this is a very critical area where it is difficult for one country or institution to deal with it alone. You need to coordinate with other stakeholders. And I must emphasize that the non-state actors are very, very important in this. And most of the time when people are missing, the first point of contact is usually the non-state actors, because they try their level best to avoid authorities, because these are migrants without documentation sometimes. These are migrants that are smuggled. So the first point of contact usually are the non-state actors, the activists, the community leaders, fishermen, and you name it, the private sector. So what is important in this network is it brings together all those actors in one umbrella and discuss issues about missing migrants, and also share best practice, especially for countries that are just beginning to have these issues, to learn from others how they deal with this in the area of forensic DNA tracing, as well as how you support families and all of that. So the network is quite important in learning best practice and also strengthening bilateral relations, all towards supporting families, trace loved ones.
Thanks, Ndumbeh, and I can now see a few questions starting to come in as well. I know that we've got about 12 minutes to go until the end of the webinar. So what I think I will do, I've got 2 questions that have come in that I might just pose to each of the panelists, and then we can hand back to Alice in about 7 or 8 minutes. Malvika, maybe I'll start with you. One of the questions that's come in is, in your context, So the situation that you're talking about in Niger in particular and the Sahel region, what do you think some of the main barriers are to saving lives and responding to missing migrants? And in an ideal world, what are the 2 or 3 things you'd like to see change? What action should we take? Thanks.
Right. Thank you so much. I think one of the main barriers is the geography itself. It's just the vastness of the desert. And there were certain, I mean, there are still also to some extent legal policy frameworks that obstruct and let's say push migrants into onto clandestine routes, and they are compelled to take these treacherous routes. But apart from this, just generally the environment, it makes it quite difficult to go from one point to the other. In terms of what can be done to make this just easier, I would say just a general shift away from such restrictive practices that actively create obstacles for life-saving actions, which can be led either by the community itself, because they know the geography of the landscape the best, or maybe even the state entities because they're there. And in case of search and rescue, in case there is, for example, a situation that arises where migrants are in distress, I'd say the efforts shouldn't end with the rescue itself and must go beyond to also encompass reception facilities, etc., etc. So yes.
Great, really practical, really helpful. Thank you very much. Fru, if I can ask the same question of you, in your context, you're talking about Cameroonian women transiting through the Americas region. What is the main barrier, and what are 2 or 3 things, if you look ahead to the future, you'd like to see change? I think you're on mute.
Oh, thank you very much for that question. I think the most important barrier right now is I think the political context in the US and the kind of pressure that the Trump regime is actually exerting on the countries in Latin America. For that reason, I think most of those women making that upward journey to the US are really stuck in, particularly in the border countries of either Mexico or Panama or Nicaragua. And I think what should be done is that those countries should actually provide some protective mechanisms for those women, or they should be able to provide them with, I think, a kind of humanitarian passageway so that they can actually make it to safety. So to me, those are my 2 recommendations.
Thank you. Ralph, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it is, of course, questions of political will are really inescapable when you're talking about rescue. I think a lot of what we have been trying to do is structure dialogues that help to build that will, using commercial shipping as a potentially useful interlocutor with states, because there is interest on that side in upholding the safety of life at sea. I think, seafarers that we speak to, surveys that we've done show, a really strong feeling amongst seafarers that if a vessel is in distress, those people should be rescued. And they don't distinguish between migrant boats and other boats. At the same time, there's, of course, a lot of other very political factors at play. And so bringing those groups together, and identifying issues where agreement can be reached and some issues can be advanced is part of what we have been trying to do as the foundation.
Thanks, Ralph. And Ndumbeh, over to you to finish off on the same set of questions, please.
Thank you so much, Sanya. I think just like he rightly said, what is important at the moment is connecting up to support the missing who are voiceless. They don't have the chance to speak for themselves. And central governments have key role in this, in as much as the private sector and this non-state actors are important. So we need to strengthen the legal framework, especially in data protection measures, and setting the mandate clear, improving coordination at state level, involving all those actors work together in a coordinated process, and also strengthen bilateral engagement in this area. The best way is dialogue, because missing migrants go beyond just forced disappearance and missing, which normally lead to prosecutions and legal issues. Most of the cases, these people are smuggled. They are aware that they want to move. And the most difficult part from the government side is lack of documentation in most cases. Many of the migrants travel without documentation. So I think we need kind of a brainstorming one-stop shop. We need to improve existing structures, one-stop shop, to give information to migrants on the move at all levels of their journey. And also not for them not to fear prosecution. Some of them are fearing prosecution. We also need to revisit that as actors to make sure that people are not scared of connecting with families back home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ndumbeh, and thank you to all of our panelists. I think in terms of some of the challenges, we heard about geography, about legal and policy frameworks, of the political environment, of lack of resources. And actually, from each of you, we heard a whole series of great practical recommendations. We heard about structured dialogue. We heard about bilateral engagement. We heard about the importance of legal and policy frameworks that do create the enabling environment for practical action. We heard about the importance of having states and communities in the lead because of their local knowledge. And we also heard about developing more protective measures and opportunities for safe passage. So thank you very much. I feel like I've learnt an enormous amount. I had read your articles, but I feel like this conversation also gave me so much more depth. I'm going to hand back to Alice because I know that she's going to thank all of you and many more people. But Alice, if I may, it would be great to have another set of authors and do this all over again to learn much more on this issue. So thank you very much, Alice, and over to you.
Thank you, Sanjula. Right now we have 140 people who have stayed to the end. And my invitation to each one of you is to share this edition with someone, just one other person who you think would benefit from the contents, because this is actually a movement of people. And if you have stayed this long, this is something you're passionate about, you're interested in. And we have some of the really key players in this space present today. So I feel very privileged to be able to be here with all of you who are doing such incredible work in this area. But let's not let this issue stay in a library. Let's get it out to people. So if you can share it on social media, if you can take it to conferences, we'll be printing some issues as well. So if you would like to write to us, and we can send you one to put on the desk of somebody important who has power to change things, or somebody who would like to begin a journey to understanding how they could, then please do. We'll share this recording. If you would like to find the recording, you will receive it by email as you've registered for this event, but it'll also be on our website on the Refugee Studies Centre YouTube, where we're based at the University of Oxford. And we'd love for you to share that further. And Sanjula, I hear your invitation to have another event, and I think you're right. There were so many amazing authors in this issue. It was very hard to choose, and perhaps we can organise one in the autumn. In terms of FMR, what's next for us? We are now reviewing the proposals on our next issue, which is about climate change. The subtitle is Choices for Displaced People. We're really focusing on, within the context of climate change, what real choices do displaced people have? It's a really fascinating topic. We had a huge number of proposals, and we're looking forward to bringing that to you in the autumn. So keep your eyes open. If you'd like to follow us on social media, all of the links are in the chat there, and sign up for our newsletter. We don't send you too many emails, so we're not going to flood your inbox, but we do let you know when the next issue is out and when there are opportunities to become authors yourself. Encourage people in your networks to consider proposals for FMR. We really love to invite new authors particularly, and those with lived experience of displacement themselves. So if you can help us to extend our networks, we'd be very grateful. Thank you to Sanjula, thank you to the authors, thank you to our donors, and thank you to you, the audience, for staying and engaging with this incredibly important topic and for supporting FMR. Thank you. Bye, everyone.